This video is sponsored by Iron Fist and The Defenders, plus all the other Marvel shows that are on Netflix. So get Netflix, I guess. Marvel has made the right decision regulating some of its characters over at Netflix. It's because of this we've seen some of the most critically and commercially successful series of the past few years. So what I want to do today is talk about what I feel they're doing well, what perhaps could be improved, what we'll be getting in the near future, and some characters I'd like to see make an appearance down the line. Plus, as always, there'll be a Loot Crate giveaway and an announcement of who won the one from last week. But that's at the end. Okay, very quick recap of what we've got so far. 13 episodes of Daredevil, 13 episodes of Jessica Jones, another 13 of Daredevil, 13 episodes of Luke Cage, 13 episodes of Iron Fist, plus the introduction of Marvel characters both minor and major, some sweet costumes, some ridiculous costumes, what I feel is a criminal tease of a minigun that is never used, ninjas, vague references towards the movies but with zero character crossover, and a man getting his head slammed flat in a car door by what looks like Captain Underpants shoehorned into a sharp suit. And all round, it's been a very successful endeavor. Luke Cage actually broke Netflix due to viewer demand, and each of the series has managed to pull in impressive ratings. And in case you were wondering, Fuller House beats all of them. And look, I'll be honest, I watched every episode of the first season. I'm not proud of that. It's just something that happened. Overall, I think Marvel have done a good job bringing these characters to the small screen. Each in their own right have multiple aspects that make them compelling to watch, but I guess not so compelling that the studio would risk hundreds of millions of dollars to make a movie on them. And maybe it's because some of these characters aren't super well known, or maybe it's because they got damaged in the 2003 film that everyone says the director's cut version makes it much better, but then when you watch that cut you realize, you know, it's about the same. If I'm honest, I actually kind of like this movie. I mean, it ain't great, but it did come out in 2003. Things were, they were different then. I mean, that was the year of Cradle, the number 2, The Grave. But it's not a sequel. Why is there a number 2 in the title? Someone who's not me should watch it and find out. The other thing is, there's clearly genuine effort put into these projects by people who understand the properties. For the most part. These are some of the best characterizations of comic book characters that we've ever gotten. And it's obvious that there's been great care taken in terms of crafting this universe in a realistic fashion, and yet at the same time paying homage to the source material. And there's also decent money put into this. Each episode of Daredevil averages out to cost around $2 million, and the action sequences, on the whole, are incredible. Even though, if I'm honest, Luke Cage and Iron Fist were a bit of a letdown. But I mean, just look at the Daredevil stuff. It's just incredible for TV. And not just for TV, but especially for TV, because TV action is generally not very good, but at the same time, when you look at it on the whole, it's gone a lot better. I don't know what this is from. It could be a TV series. I just really like it. Casting also, great all round. Finn Jones is probably the weakest of the main 4.
You chatter like monkeys. Your kicks and punches are like lace curtains.
But I'm not sure whether that's the actor himself or the material he was given to work with. But enough ass kissing. These ain't perfect. I mean, they're pretty good, and I've been very happy in general, but I gotta say, 13 episodes a series, it's too many. I mean, maybe it's because I shotgun all of these over a couple of days to get out an Easter egg video as quickly as possible. But some of these episodes really drag. None I felt more so than the last 2. I mean, what's wrong with making these a tight 8? I feel like with Luke Cage, we got the same conversation from bad guys about what they were going to do about this Luke Cage fella. Like, several times an episode. And boy, was there a lot of talk about business dealings in Iron Fist. I would say probably one too many, and by one I mean closer to 15. Also, in terms of villains, yes, some of Marvel's strongest, but a lot of it's just mob bosses and corrupt politicians, isn't it? I mean, we get the occasional ninja and man who makes you stand in a cupboard until you piss your pants, but my god, I would do a legit somersault if a Mysterio or Doctor Doom showed up, like he did in that one Luke Cage story. I know the rights for him are currently sitting with Fox, but come on Fox, just hand him back. You're just gonna balls it up again. Why don't you just take the loss? Or take the L, as the kids say. Here it is. You can print that off. Put in your bloody desk drawer. The other thing is, I'm kind of sick of seeing the exact same looking streets and alleyways and hallways in every series. Initially, it was a very interesting look at the world. Very separate to your Captain Americas or your Jake Chisels. But can we go somewhere else? And look, I know the idea is that the Defenders look after a very specific part of New York, and we're seeing a grim and grittier side of the MCU, but I think there's room to branch out. That's why it was disappointing that we didn't get more mystical locations in Iron Fist. He's the kind of character that can go anywhere in the world, or at least somewhere else in the world. Don't tell me there's a mystical city with a dragon living near it in a cave and then not show me. I want to see the dragon! Also, if budget's a concern, again, just shorten it to 8, and then you've got an extra $10 million or so to play with. Maybe one of them could then fight devil dinosaur. I mean, that wouldn't make any sense, but I bet $10 million would buy a pretty goddamn amazing looking dinosaur, and that's what I'm about. But yeah, look, really, these are minor complaints. Like I said, overall, things are looking good. And it also seems that way when we look ahead. I mean, next we got the Defenders, what everything has been building towards. So we're getting Daredevil, Jessica Jones, Luke Cage, Iron Fist, and presumably the Punisher, but only hopefully if he brings his minigun, uniting against a common threat. There is a rumor that it's going to be Mephisto, who's, well, he's the devil, I guess. I mean, there's been a few variations on the devil at Marvel. It's kind of hard to keep track. But if it is Mephisto, great. Presumably, he's not a mob boss, unless he's one of those, oh, I'm a legitimate businessman, but I'm also secretly the devil. Also, it's only 8 episodes. And that's also great, because that's what I've been saying that. I've said that already in this video. It's probably worth noting also that the Punisher series is in the works on the back of how well he was received in Daredevil. And that's a good sign that Marvel are responsive to what works and what doesn't by them moving forward with this. Okay, so let's look beyond. We've got rampant speculation that a bunch of these characters are going to show up in Avengers Infinity War. But really, I think that's wishful thinking. It's probably not going to happen. I think it would be nice to see some nods towards them, seeing as the movies just flat out ignore all the television shows. I mean, why has nobody said, hey, I hear Phil Coulson's alive? And then someone else says, what, do you mean that guy whose death managed to unite us in what many consider to be our darkest hour? Well, I consider the time Iron Man nearly killed us all with a super angry robot to be our darkest hour. What were we talking about? Coulson being alive. Oh yeah, right. So they just poked at his brain and then he came back to life? That's real weird. It's weird that we've discovered a cure for death and yet no one really talks about it. Well, we don't talk about a lot of stuff. Like what? Like the X-Men. Who? Forget it, don't worry about it. Anyways, I feel compelled in this sponsored video for some reason to again mention that all these shows are currently available on Netflix. The latest being Iron Fist, and like I said, the next up being The Defenders. And considering the reasonable cost, there's a real wide variety of top quality shows. I'm actually watching Narcos at the moment. I'd never seen it, and it's great. That's not what this is about though, this is about Marvel stuff. But man, it's good. Plus, there's a bunch of comedy specials they've been putting out. But like I said, also the Marvel stuff. In terms of series I'd like to see, I think like many, Moon Knight would be a fantastic addition. Not only would presumably we get some more super brutal action sequences, there's also the whole he believes his abilities come from an Egyptian god, and maybe they do, or maybe he's insane. Regardless, there's this constant internal struggle stemming from his mental instability, which makes him a very compelling personality, and not just another Batman clone as he was thought to initially be. All these Netflix shows have done a really good job of tackling some heavy issues, and Moon Knight would be the perfect character to explore some of the stigma and what it's like to live with a mental illness. Plus, he kicks guys real hard. 2 good things. Here at whatever this channel is called, I've put the boot into Hawkeye quite a bit. And you know what? I don't hate him. I just think he's kind of ridiculous as a member of the Avengers. Also, I feel like they've kind of done as much with him as they can on a cinematic level. But you take him away from the movies and develop a series around Matt Fraction's My Life as a Weapon, and that's something else entirely. So if he does make it through Infinity War, which there's a good chance he will not, I mean, I thought he was going to punch out in Age of Ultron after he met his family, then yeah, do something like that with him. Or at least have Thanos hit him and he explodes into a fine red mist. There are, of course, limitations to what characters you can bring to Netflix, simply from a budgetary standpoint. A lot of people are calling for a Howard the Duck series, but realistically, you can't CGI a 4-foot-tall humanoid duck for 13 episodes, or probably even create a convincing enough television budget duck costume that doesn't look horrendous, like a nightmare. That's also why we'll probably never see someone like the Hulk show up, at least not in any significant way. She-Hulk, on the other hand, that is a legitimate option. There is a significant size difference between a human and Hulk form, but not so drastic that it would require all CGI. You just get a tallish actor with a decent build and just, paint her green. Plus, often, despite being a lawyer, she just stays in She-Hulk form, as unlike the other version of the Hulk, she retains her intelligence, so they wouldn't necessarily need to cast 2 actors or use the same actor and then CGI one bigger or smaller, like they did with Steve Rogers. Other people have mentioned the likes of Ghost Rider, though there has been a variation on him just running about on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. So maybe he'll stay with ABC. Ms. Marvel, Blade, which is someone Marvel are apparently weighing up what to do with, and a lot of mentions online of Spider-Man. That'll never happen though. Sony would not let him go. I mean, you should never say never, but let's say Yeah, not in the next 10 years. One final thought. If you wanted to do a character believed too complex budgetary-wise, or they're not suited to a full series, why don't Netflix look into making Marvel telemovies? I mean, they make movies exclusively for their service. Why not take a crack at something like a lower budgeted Blade movie? Something to think about. I mean, not really. I mean, you can just think about stuff that, you personally want to think about. I mean, that's fine. Okay, so here's the winner of last week's Loot Crate. Just private message me through my channel, these details, and it's all yours. We'll get it sent out. It's done. It's not a problem. And if you want next week's box, just leave any comment below and I'll announce the winner next Sunday. It might be on something you're most looking forward to or something you'd like to see happen with the Marvel Netflix universe thing. Totally your call. Also, if this is something up your dimly lit alley, sounded weird, I'm not going to edit it out, I'm just going to push through, why not check out my movie/comic/TV show podcast, The Weekly Planet. That's linked below if you're interested, or you can just click on one of those videos. These all work on mobile also, so no excuses unless you're wearing gloves. That's a pass, that's fine. But thanks for watching this, I appreciate it. Take care.